Alright, in the last video I was showing you this being glued and put together. It's three very simple boxes, as you can see. There's nothing complicated about them, and then all glued together. There's a end panel on each side and some dividing panels in the middle here to give a little bit of extension forward so that the drawers can fit into a space. Elizabeth does very detailed things. You don't just stick a drawer flat onto something. It needs to look as though it's in a space, so you build the spaces out with these and these little trims across here that get stuck in. It's important, if you want to keep that appearance of space, to keep it looking as though it's a drawer that would go in and out for real, that you paint all these edges first and you paint the drawer fronts ready to glue in. Obviously you're not going to paint the back and you're not going to paint this area because those need glue on, and without paint it will glue better. The drawers are three sizes, so there's a little one for the top, useful to find the right size, a small one for the top, and middle size for the middle, and obviously a larger one at the bottom. You might find that they won't go back in as easily as those did after you've painted them because the wood tends to swell a little bit, but that's not a problem. It's just a piece of fine sandpaper and you just sand them down a little bit. So that's pretty much the base unit. Obviously much better finish than this, I hope, at the end of it, when this has been rubbed down and waxed and has got little knobs on it. But basically it will be three drawer and three large drawers in the centre base unit. On top of that are cupboards, which originally were going to have opening doors. And if you're doing opening doors, they really aren't all that difficult to do. All that happens is that you build your box, but with one end left off, the base or the top left off. Doesn't really matter which it is. You don't stick that on at this stage. Make the doors, and in Elizabeth's case, again, lovely detail. You get 4 pieces of wood for the frame, and you stick the panel inside the frame properly, just as if it were a proper door. So you're not sticking loads of trim on top of trim and having various edges showing. It's built exactly as a door would be built. And what you would do if you were going to have an opening door is that you would round off one of its edges to allow it to move, to give it some movement, because while you've got these corners on, they're going to catch when you're trying to open it. So you just knock off the edges. It's not very rounded, but it just takes these sharp edges off. You put a pin in there and a pin in there, chopping the heads off the pins. She sends you the pins, little tiny pins, as you can see, just like ordinary little brass pins, very fine. So they'll go in top and bottom with about 1/8 of an inch sticking out on each of them. And depending which side you're going to put the hinge, you then make a small hole in here and push the pin into there. So now you've got a door that's fastened at the top, hinged at the top, and you're going to put the base on, glue the base on, having made a little hole for the other pin at the bottom to go into. It's as simple as that. So on each side here you'd have a pin which is making your hinge, and your door will open. I hope a lot better than I've just shown you. I've decided in the end that I'm not going to bother with having opening doors, which is a shame because I have the pins, I have the shelves, I have everything to do it with, but it would cost so much over a long period of time to fill this linen cupboard, just so that at some point I can open a door and look in it. It seems very unnecessary. Plus this is going to go right at the very, very back of a 13-inch deep room. That was part of why I was doing it, because I want to make the room a better proportion. So it's cutting off the last 2 inches in the room. On that basis, there's going to be a litany of furniture sitting in front of it. So how many times and ways I could get my arm into that distance and open a door is probably not going to happen. So I think I'm making myself do extra work for no good purpose. So all I'm going to do is build the box as a complete box, like so, and I'll show you this properly in a minute, and glue the door in place. Now this is a very good example of how it no longer quite fits. It's not Elizabeth's cutting, her cutting is perfect. It's just that when you're gluing and sticking things together, the wood is going to swell, you're not going to get everything spot on. So there's going to be a place now and again where it's that wee bit tight and won't go in. Again, not a problem. Put some sandpaper flat down on the surface and just take that across very gently, only a couple of times each end. You don't want to change the shape, and you certainly don't want to make it too small. But if it doesn't drop in easily, it's going to be even worse when it's got paint on it. So before you paint it and put it together, make sure that you've got a decent fit. Again, keep them separate until they're painted, because again you want the door to look as though it is separate from that. You'll find if you glue them together all together at this stage, those and the drawers, and then paint the whole cupboard, let's say you finish the whole cupboard and then paint it all, the paint will run into all those little creases and crevices, and it will look like one big block of something. It won't look as though there's the space there for a cupboard door to open or for a drawer to pull out. So it's important that those things are done separately and go together at the end. What I was going to show you on there, and as it happens I don't need to because it's just lifted out perfectly, is that sometimes if I'm drying something on there that I've glued, this is that jig again, this is that right angle jig again, with an elastic band round to clamp the box to keep it nice and square. If I dry something on there, sometimes it just sticks a little bit, not enough to panic you, but a little bit. And if you pull it and it's not yet set, you're going to skew everything off. This is the answer to that problem. Very cheap, very small, very thin, very flexible little palette knife. Any craft shop. It's really not special in any way, and it's not very expensive. I can't remember what, a couple of quid maybe. And all that I do with that is that I just give it a gentle push from behind, or I lift it from underneath. Anywhere where I feel it's just tacking a little bit, just give it a little gentle nudge and it will free up whatever's on there and it'll come out easy peasy. As I said, that one as it happened didn't stick and came out easily anyway. So hope that the next one I'll be showing you is when it's all assembled, it's all painted, it's all been waxed, and we're good to go. Okay, that's the middle stage.